Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure. All right, welcome. So this is Campus 201 for QRCs. Of course, a brief course description and actually a bit about who's on the panel. So my name is Mike Ireland. I was a BSA on this project for a better part of a year, focusing a lot on VRU and QRC interactions with the system moving forward. So also on the panel is Mike Hare. He is a VRU rep. Yash has brought us in. And then Michael, if he joins, he is our CRT representative, so he can answer any of those questions as they come. A brief course description here. So in this course, we're going to walk through and demonstrate some of the more specific functionality that external QRCs are going to use when handling rehab cases within campus. Obviously, the audience is QRCs, so that includes interns as well as staff that might be submitting forms for their QRCs on their behalf. And then the course length, we've kind of timed out here at 2 hours. We ran through this yesterday morning, and it was more about hour 15, hour and a half. So I'd be surprised if we go full 2 hours. And then the last little bit here is prerequisites. So there was a course before this, Campus 101 for rehab providers. And that was about registering your firm, registering as an individual, and then kind of the group management of your firm as well. It is not, of course, a prerequisite. If you are here, you're free to stay and listen, but go check that one out if you haven't. So the breakdown we've got here is roughly 60 minutes on our form submission and case creation within campus. That's probably what you're going to be most interested in hearing about. The second bit here is claim access, and then claim overview is the third. This, and by no means are we suggesting that you need claim access to do your job. As we understand it today, you may not need claim access, you may not care for claim access, you're doing something separate. This is just if going forward in the future you decide you would like access to the claim, or there's actual reason that you need access to the claim, we'll show you how to do it. And then what a claim looks like in the new system. Okay, so on to our form submissions. And actually, before I get started, we're going to go through a bunch of slides here, but we are going to do a demo. And so once I get into the system, it's our test system. So some things may not be working perfectly. It is our test system, and we've got some bad data in there, but we'll try to navigate around and show you as much as we can. And then we'll do some questions at the end of each one of those demos to make sure that your voices are heard and we're answering the question that you have. So as you know, our forms are submitted by QRCs, interns, and their staff at various stages throughout the process. They're used to both initiate rehab plans as well as change various aspects, such as changing the assigned QRC, adjusting the rehab timeline, changing activities, or indicate that rehab is completed or closed. Each form has its own purpose and submitted at different points in the rehab process. We'll be taking a look at, I don't think we're going to get into the interface of every single form, but we definitely show you all the forms that are available for you guys to submit. So this is your RCR, and then all the numbered ones. So the R2, the R3, R8. There's a couple more. There's the plan progress report. There is retraining plans, and then kind of the one that's not grouped with all those is the rights and responsibilities, which you're pretty familiar with. That's going to be submitted kind of in a different way, and we'll talk about that too. So we will start with the RCR. You'll see a couple pictures on the right. So the top left picture there is kind of your dashboard when you log in, and we'll get a better picture for you when we do the demo. But essentially, this is how you're going to kick off a rehab plan in campus. So you'll go up to that submit a filing, you'll click it, and based on your user role, so that is a QRC, intern, or staff acting on behalf of one of those two, you're going to have a bunch of forms available for you to submit. The one we're focused on is right in the middle, is the rehab consultation report. On the right, you'll see kind of a little bit of the interface. Again, we'll get into more of this on the demo, but there's basic functionalities that you'll get on any form. So obviously you can submit it, and that is your submission to the department. There's also save as draft. So if you have to save it, and maybe print it off and get signatures. We've heard that in our first session. Print it off and get signatures from the appropriate parties, come back in and upload it. We can do that. Download PDF and preview. Those are pretty self-explanatory, but the download PDF is the mechanism by which you would take it offline, go get those signatures, and then bring it back in. So there's lots of stuff that you can do. One of the first things that we're going to ask you to do when you're submitting your RCR. Right?
Say, Mike, just a question. So if they are going to be uploading their narrative report with the RCR, can it be a Word document, PDF, or what can the system take?
Yeah, so we're going to support both of those types. I believe we'll want to definitely take a note to confirm, because it's been a long time since I looked at that specific requirement. I think we can pretty much support any file type you can think of. So .doc, .xlsx, so that's Excel, even PDF. I think we can pretty much support everything. Okay, so one of the first things that we're going to do when you go and you submit your RCR, and this step only really applies to certain forms. Once you do it the first time, you're not going to need to keep doing it. But we're going to ask you to try and find the claim that it is you're submitting the RCR against. And so some of the feedback we heard in our first session was, we may not know the WID of the employee, or we may not know certain information related to the employee. That's okay. We're going to allow you to continue to submit the form even if you can't match to a claim. You'll just have to provide some details so that somebody on the department side can go and look at your submission and say, oh, this actually pertains to this claim. Let's make that link. And we'll get into what that looks like. We'll get into the different ways in which we ask you to locate a claim. This form right here, what you're seeing on the screen, is what happens when you can't. If you don't have enough information to locate a claim, we're going to just ask you for more details related to the claim. So you'll see things like, if you know the date of injury, let's put that in. Basic information on the employee. I think we'll ask you also to try and identify the employer insurer if you can. You don't have to. But we'll just ask for as much information as you can provide. Once you've submitted your RCR, and again, we'll go through this and I'll show you what a rehab case looks like, but you're going to have other forms to submit, right? As you work through rehab, you're going to have other things that you're going to need to submit. You got the R2, you've got R3s, all the amendments that go along with it, the PPR or the R3 at 6 months. So there's lots of different timing that occurs here that we've accounted for. So what you're seeing here kind of is the way that you navigate to the form. So on your dashboard, when you log in, you'll have something called My Rehab Cases. So we've got some bad data here, but the one I want you to pay attention to is on the bottom. This is most likely what it's going to look like. You're going to have a transaction number. On the bottom left, you're going to have the employee that was identified. And if you were able to match to a claim, it's going to show you the claim that you were matched to. That doesn't automatically give you access to that claim to go look at it. It's just going to show you, yep, we're able to match to a claim, and this is it. Once you click on that rehab transaction, it's going to take you to a case details page. So it's going to have all of the pertinent information surrounding rehab that you submitted on the RCR there. The one that we want to focus on right here is just how you get to other R forms. We will show you, of course, what else is on that page. So at the top of the rehab case is something called the R form details. You click to expand it, and it's going to have all the forms that you can submit, and it's also going to show you what you've already submitted. Those forms, once you submit them, also go to a Documents tab on the case itself, and we'll show you that so that it's memorialized and it stays with the case. All right, so here's a much better picture. This is what the case page kind of looks like. So you've got rehab summary, and that's information submitted via your forms. And similar with dates, that those dates are driven off of the timing of your form submission. At the bottom, you'll see a couple tabs. Unfortunately, I think this screenshot's a little dated. There should be a documents tab there as well, along with parties and related cases and claims. So there should be a documents one there that memorializes all the forms you've submitted and all the other documents that have been submitted against this rehab case. The parties that come over, if you were able to match to a claim, are coming directly from the claim. So if you're able to match to a specific claim, we're going to pull over the employer and insurer. And you'll see once we get to the form itself on the RCR, if you're able to match to a claim, we just pre-populate that for you so that you don't need to go through and fill it out every time you come in here and submit forms. I believe the next two slides are just surrounding the other forms that you're able to submit on the case, and then we'll get into a demo. So obviously R2 and R3 are simply other forms that you're going to submit. They are timing based, so I'm actually going to go back. You've got dates around your R2 that show up based on your RCR. And so you'll know that it's time to submit your R2, and then in 6 months, it's time to submit either the R3 or the plan progress report. Again, this is just navigation. We'll get into what some of these forms look like in a second. These are just the other forms that we consider quote unquote R forms. So RA, PPR, and retraining plan we've already talked about. You're going to navigate them in the same way as you would any other form. A little interesting note is that we understand that there are business rules around some of these forms. You can't submit some until you've submitted others. So as you navigate, and we'll see it a little bit in the demo, you'll see some things are grayed out. All that means is you can't submit it because you haven't submitted the previous form. Okay, cool. Let's get out and go to the demo. Of course, I'm logged out. Bear with me 1 second, folks. Working. I certainly hope Confluence is in town. That would be a disaster. All right, let me try one more thing. Sorry for the delay, people. We'll get there. All right, progress. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen really quick. All right, and just like that, magic, we are back. Okay, sorry for the delay. So I've logged in here as a QRC user, Sarah McCurdy. This is what the dashboard is going to look like. So just from a holistic standpoint, you've got the submit a filing that we went over. So these are all the forms that are available to you. This is as a user, some things that you can do. I'm not going to demo all of this stuff. I just want to show you that there's stuff you can do. So you can edit your profile. You can manage your groups if you have a certain permission. All of that is handled as parts of other trainings. 7 open claims related to me as Sarah McCurdy. Any events or any new documents for my review would also show up here, but she, of course, doesn't have any. So at the bottom here, again, you've got your Qs. If you have access to any claims, you're going to see them here. So she, of course, has many because she is one of our favorite testers. But disputes, so if you've got any disputes that are related to rehab, they will show up here. Forms is worth noting. These are all of the forms that you have either have submitted or are in draft status. So you'll see over here, we've got a column for that. We have confirmation numbers as well, and then the associated transaction. So just so you're aware, CL is claim, RT is rehab transaction, yeah, DS is dispute. So that's kind of how we've named these. And then the one that you're probably logging into and using the most is going to be the rehab cases. She's got a lot, so it takes a little bit of time to load up here. But we'll just give it a second and then we'll access an actual transaction. All right, so let's just pick this one. So we've got, again, you'll see the rehab summary. We've got rehab dates. I've already showed you all this, but this is kind of a much easier to digest view. Up here is your R form details. So this is going to show you all the forms that you can submit. This is kind of some of the behavior I was mentioning before, right? So R2 has been submitted. You cannot submit it anymore. Now it's all amendments to that R2. So your R3 is available to you. R8 you can do to close your plan. And then of course, these two are also available for submission. Not going to do that just yet. I'm going to navigate down to the bottom. So we have, as I mentioned, the three main tabs. So you've got parties, related cases and claims, and then documents. So this should have, yeah, it'll have the documents that we've submitted against this case. Any related cases and claims that pertain to this particular rehab transaction. So this particular case for Timmy testing, he's also got these related cases within campus. This doesn't give you automatic access to go and view these cases. You do need to make sure that you submit a request for access if you do want to go look at them. But this is just informational. And the last bit I mentioned already is that these are coming over directly from the claim because we've matched to a claim. So we can pull over the employee, the employer, insurer, and claim admin information as it pertains to this particular. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to submit the RCR and we'll show you some of that behavior for locating a claim. So here we are, and I think what we heard yesterday was that typically you're not going to have the WID, which is this EE number. You might have the date of injury, but not the WID. You probably don't know the JCN either, but you might have the last name. And so these first two are going to be very specific. If you do know them, it's easier for us to match to a claim on them. But the last one here, this third option, is probably where you'll find the most use. So the last four of the social security number, the employee date of injury, and then the employee last name. We do need an exact match here, so I want to say that up front. We need an exact match of data elements in order to match to a claim. I have some information to input here that will help us match to a claim. Actually, you know what? I will do this. Let's make something up so that I can show you the claim intake form. So yeah, the first thing, I wasn't able to match to a claim because I didn't have the right information. So it's asking, tell us more about what you're trying, about the claim you're trying to file against. So we just ask you a bunch of questions. I'm going to make some things up here just to move along. Pick an employer as well. Okay, so this should start to at least look a little bit more familiar to you when we get down to these qualification details. Oh, and another thing to note here is that the QRC details, we don't obviously require you to match to a claim to fill in your own information for you, right? So as a logged in user of our system, you're going to have an account with us. You're going to be registered to a firm. You're going to be able to pick an address if your firm has multiple locations. You'll be able to pick yours. The QRC number is something that we get from you at the time of registration with campus. Um, QRC firm number as well, and then obviously whatever phone number is on your profile. So we're going to populate that information for you. These are the questions I think that you're going to be more familiar with from a typical day-to-day standpoint of what's included on the RCR. So the qualification details, these are all of your the questions that you're familiar with. We've also got the eligibility statement about whether or not they're eligible for rehab services. We have the narrative section in the middle here, which, I mean, predominantly you're just going to be, my guess, uploading your narrative. You have your own system, I'm sure, where you do and log your services, and you would have a narrative that you would want here as well, so you can upload it. In the off chance that you want to just copy and paste it in, you can also do that, or you can freeform your narrative if you want to. Again, like I said, you'd most likely upload it, but we are going to require one of those two forms of narrative with the RCR. So if you don't input some freeform text, you have to upload a document. If you don't upload a document, you've got to put in some freeform text. Moving down, rights and responsibilities. So I mentioned that this one's handled a little bit earlier. It's included as its own section on the RCR for you to attach because I think what Mike Hill from CRT will say and has indicated in the past is that really we'd like you to submit it up front as early as possible right here with this RCR. There's no formal statute that says that you have to. The law just says that you have to do it prior to closing the rehab case, but as much and as quickly as we can, we'd like you to submit it with the RCR. It is not required, so if you do not put it in there, we're going to allow you to progress. Any supporting attachments, so anything else that you might want to upload along with your RCR, it'll stay with the parent RCR form just as an attachment, and it'll be added to your case just like any other documents. I must have picked some bad data here because there's no parties to serve. Might be able to add one. I'm not even going to go through it. We'll see on other R forms. We understand that you might want to distribute these documents or notify parties that the document has been added to the case or even that a case has been created. So what this step does is it allows you to pick the parties. And now actually that I'm seeing this, the reason why it's not populated because I didn't match to a claim. So we might not know the parties, even though you've given them to us. We need to run some validation to make sure that they're the correct party for the claim.
So Mike, the point of the affidavit of service, though, which is non-traditional for most of the QRCs, is that by completing this part, it allows them to go ahead and electronically submit that to all the parties versus the current old-fashioned way of faxing it to the parties or using U.S. mail.
Yeah, 100%. That's definitely accurate. It is not going to, a point of clarification, it is not going to act as the method by which you get signatures from those parties. But it is the way to notify them of the document and distribute it electronically, yes. Moving down, just some attestations here. I do want to point out the electronic signature. It has to be exact and it has to match your account profile. So right now, again, I'm logged in as Sarah McCurdy. So if I was going to do this, it would have to be exact Sarah McCurdy. If your first name like me is Michael, but you go by Mike, it's not going to allow you to put in Mike. You would have to put in Michael because that's what my profile probably would be set up as. So just has to match. I'm going to go back. Right. to this located claim step and show you what it looks like if you are able to match to a claim. So I'm using the JCN. Again, as mentioned, you might or might not have it. Probably the easier way for you to match to a claim would be providing this stuff on the right. But either way, a match is a match, right? So it'll still look the same. All right. That's not a good start. All right. Let me see what claims I have access to, and let me try to submit another one. Bear with me. Okay, there we go. So I was able to successfully match to a claim. What we've got here is some pre-filled data. So whereas before, when you couldn't match to a claim, you're entering a lot of stuff, here you'll see employee details filled out. You don't need to give us any information. Employer details filled out. This one in particular, for whatever reason, doesn't have the appropriate contacts or phone numbers, but you can always add one if you so chose. I'm not going to. You'll see insurer details. We've got the insurer. Again, for whatever reason, the address isn't associated to the insurer, so it's not showing up. QRC details, so same as last time, we already pre-populated it. And then you can just get into your qualification details and eligibility statement, report, narrative report, rights and responsibilities, and everything else, same as before. You'll see here for affidavit of service, this is pre-selecting the parties that are listed on the claim to notify them that this case is being opened and that a document has been added. Last point I want to make is that before we get into questions, I'm sure there are plenty, I just can't see them. The last point I want to make here is that this this behavior can also be done by some of your staff. So if you have a person who's kind of like a general user who helps you with your filings as a QRC, we need to create that relationship via registration, and then they can come in and submit these forms on your behalf. It's going to look and behave a little differently up front. We're going to ask them, they could be, submitting forms on behalf of many people. They might have many relationships. So we'll ask them who they're submitting on behalf of. That might be the only thing we ask. Maybe we might ask a few more details to make sure that they are really submitting on behalf of the right person. But eventually they'll come in here and they'll submit just as you would. So I'm going to pause. Mike Hill and Mike here, if you guys could, similar to last time, just help us with questions and see what we've got.
Well, we've actually just been kind of answering as you've been going along, but one of the questions that started off right off the bat was, how come they're not able to log in right now into campus and create their username and password?
Yeah, so campus has not gone live yet. We're not in production, and it's not accessible by any external users or internal users for that matter. So there's, I'm sure, going to be an announcement by the department about when go live is. I actually don't even know off the top of my head when that go live date is.
We just sent out a notice that was said that we rescheduled from the August 27th date to November 2nd. And the reason we had to go out 60 days actually was because of some statutorial stuff that we have to deal with. So it has to go out at least that long.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a very formal announcement that goes out, preparing users and letting them know what they need to do to facilitate registration and all that fun stuff.
Another question had to do with the rights form, and you partially covered it as far as that it needs to be submitted essentially from outside of campus. And I guess the question would be, where do they get those rights and responsibilities forms? One is they might already have copies of that form in their possession that they're currently using, or perhaps even a cleaner version of that would be to use the current PDFs that are posted on DLI's website. It's fillable, so you can type it in, so actually everybody can read it, and then have the employee sign it and send it in. And it's less fuzzy versus a document that's been copied many times.
Yep, exactly right.
There's another question here about how do you obtain signatures for the R2?
Yeah, this is the same question that came up yesterday. So when you're filling out the R2, and maybe it's worth um, taking a peek down here. Yeah, so this form has the same thing, and they're all going to have the same thing. So if you need to get signatures, what you're going to do is fill it out, right? Go through everything, fill out everything. Eventually, you'll come down to this bottom where you can do a couple things. So save as draft is one, but more pertinent to this discussion would be to download the PDF of what you filled out. So you've got it, you feel like you've got it in a good state, you download it. You're going to need to distribute that to the parties and get their actual physical signatures on it. And then you can bring it back in and upload a document that has signatures on
And when they download it, will it automatically go to their printer, or do they have to get the system somehow registered with the printer? How does that work?
it. Yeah. So download is going to be specific to your browser settings. So mine, if I hit download, yeah, it's going to give me a problem as usual. Let me try to get back there real quick. It worked yesterday. I think you can attest to that, Mike. We saw it yesterday. Essentially, what it's going to do is it's going to Yeah, here we go. So you'll see it downloaded, and my browser settings currently say, just do it as a normal PDF and throw it in this little bottom corner here. Once you open it up, just like any browser, it's going to have the printable option here. But you'll see that the stuff is filled in so you can print it off.
So, Mike, another question came is that after you've dealt with the form and if you're waiting for signatures or that type of thing, and you submit it to them electronically to the different parties and probably by mail to the employee if they don't have a computer, uh, can they sign and return the form electronically to you, or do they have to do it by mail, fax? How does that work?
Yeah, so that's kind of the distinction I was trying to make earlier, and it might not have been clear for this affidavit of service. The way that it works is let's pick these three electronic ones, right? So this is exactly the example you've laid out, Mike, is that the employee doesn't have they're not registered users with the system, so we can't electronically notify them that a document has been created and submitted. But what it's going to do is it's going to say, all right, for these three that are electronic, we're going to send them an email that says, okay, on this, for this particular claim, there has been a rehab that's been opened, and it'll give them the information to navigate to that rehab if they want to go see the document, right? So that's all it's doing. It's not saying, all right, here you go, insurer representative, please log into this system and electronically sign the document. That's not what's going on here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so if they want to sign it and return it, they have to download it like you had done with the document before, and then either fax it or mail it back to the QRC.
Yep. So let me get out of here real quick. Discard. essentially what they would do is they would come in, they'd navigate to whatever the rehab case was. So they're within that email notification that goes out when you quote unquote electronically serve them the document. It's going to give them the case ID um, so that they can go navigate to it. And then once they get there, it'll show them on the Documents tab um, the document that was uploaded. So give me a second here while it loads. Okay. They would just come down here to this document. Within the email again is going to be the document ID. So they would just come here, and if they wanted to sign it, you're absolutely right. They'd open it. You can download it here. I'm not going to go through all the steps, but download it, sign it, and either get it back. I mean, they could theoretically, I believe, add a document back in. That might not be true, um, but either way, they would download it, sign it, and get it back to the QRC. Other questions in the chat?
Kind of a repeat of the previous one. If the insurer downloads it, signs it, there's no way for them to upload it back into Campus so it's returned to the parties, right? They really do. They really do have to do it by mail or fax or something.
Well, let me see here. So again, I am on the rehab case. So if the insurer who's the party on the rehab case comes in, this insurer comes in, they hit submit filing. What it looks like to me is they can upload a document. Yeah, I think they can. So they'll upload a document and click this. It'll act like a form, right? They're going to have to sign for it. They're going to have to click this attestation and submit it. And it'll come back down to this Documents tab, and it's going to add it as its own unique document. So there would still be work for the QRC to do. The QRC would have to come in here to Documents, realize that the insurer has added a new document. Maybe it's a signature and they call it something different. But you could assemble it that way. If the insurer is apt enough to come in and do it via this rehab transaction, you could do it that way.
Okay, well, that might be more expedient. They're next also wanting to now see what the R2 and R3 look like.
Oh, yeah, I should have probably shown those, shouldn't I? Yeah, we can take a look at those.
And a follow-up question to the previous one was, if the insurer does upload the document and submit it, would there be an email to the QRC that that's occurred, or how does the QRC know, other than just having to try to remember to look back into the system?
Yeah, let's actually parking lot that one. I believe that there is an automatic notification that goes out that says somebody has added a document to your Documents tab. I want to say that's right, but I am not 100% sure.
Hey, Mike and Mike, this is Mike. Just so everybody's confused about everybody on the panel's name, Mike. It's Mike here in the VRU. I would like to see if we can't parking lot that insurer uploading a document back into the Documents tab, because if the insurer is coming in as the insurer, I don't know where that document is. Not part of the rehab transaction, part of the claim document. Mike Hill, I think I'd be concerned about losing my signed document as part of a claim, but not of the rehab transaction. So can we verify that where that document comes into Campus is it's a parent-child relationship for those documents, but they're It's not part of the rehab transaction if the insurer is uploading document into the claim. So I don't understand that. So hopefully someone can explain it.
No, I think it's a good parking lot item for us to take away. Just kind of me browsing around, it looks like there is the ability for a party to come in and add a document directly to the rehab case. Um, my guess would be that it's not also added to the claim at that point. It just stays with the case. But I think you bring up some valid concerns. So let's leave it as a parking lot item. Okay, so this is the R3. I mean, the particular rehab transaction that I opened up, the R2 was already submitted, so I can't go back and do that. You'll see a couple options here. So continue as the assigned QRC. So this is just probably the most likely use case might be right around 6 months. You're coming in to file again. You could also change of QRC or withdraw. You'll notice that we didn't ask to match to a claim right up front. Reason being is you've already done it with the RCR. We don't need to do it again. So we're just going to pull in the claim information, the most up-to-date claim information. So if information changes on the claim, it would also change here when you go to submit your subsequent forms. Got the proposed amendment and rationale. So this is just if you're continuing as QRC, why are you coming in here and doing it? It acts similar to kind of a narrative. Here's the services provided. This is just what was on the R2 submission. So I think this was actually from yesterday. We did just a single line item. If you're adding more services, obviously you can add as needed. I'm just going to pick maybe one more. And you'll see.
But the point is that there actually is all 20 services, so the QRCs can choose and select the services that they feel is appropriate when they're developing the plan.
Right. We've got the full list, so you can run the gamut of services. You would just keep adding them until you've reached your limit. Now I'm just going to throw in some random stuff. So I'll pause here. Are there any other questions on this this page before I go to the next screen? Should all be pretty familiar. Just going to go next. If it lets me, which it looks like it's not, I think we've got a problem with these forms where they don't allow more than one. Right now, in the test environment that is in production, I'm sure that it's fine. Oh, it's not letting me go for it at all. The next page is just supporting information. It's just, give us more attachments, give us another, I think there's plan barriers as well. So there's not too much else to see on there, but those work the same way that a narrative works. So you either type it in its free form, and that acts as validation for you to submit the form, or you attach a document from the system that you work on your own side and upload it.
So, Mike, there's one question about reminders, and I guess it's a good point. Generally, when an R2 completion date comes to an end, the QRC goes ahead and develops the R3. Is there some type of an email or notice somehow that alerts the QRC that they need to do a new R form?
There is not. I think we went back and forth for a long time about whether we should be emailing external users that frequently about potential forms. So I think if it's something that we would want included, we should probably take it away as a note from the meeting. But right now, I'm pretty sure there is no email that goes out that says, hey, it's been 45 days since you submitted this specific form, or it's been 6 months, now it's time to submit it again. I don't think that we've done that. As far as the R2 is concerned, it works in a similar fashion. So I think this is the most important aspect of it. I know that obviously that's simplifying it. There are other important facets here, but this behavior is really what drives projected costs. And yeah, I think this is the most pertinent stuff. The rest of it is really similar to that narrative behavior we saw before, where again, you're either free-forming or adding documents in support of this information.
So Mike, as a reminder, you have like the service category of coordinate return to work, same employer. That description box, how many characters are available in there if a person wants to type out what it is that they're going to be doing during that time period?
Yeah, these are intentionally large fields here as far as descriptions. Again, I don't have an exact number for you. My guess is it's right around between 500 and 1,000 characters. And it's intentionally large so that you can put in as much information as you need for each service category. Other questions?
I don't know what CTD is. It says something else. Will CTD be available through campus, whether for change of QRC or R8? Not sure what that is. Oh, cost to date. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think the question here, and somebody tell me if I'm wrong, is that if it switches from one QRC to another, are we going to take their previous cost to date of the previous QRC and add them to the plan? Is that the question?
I think the answer to all this is that it's the same as the current system. As you know, the R3s are telling us what projected costs are. We don't know what the actual cost is that the QRC has incurred. So what you're going to have to do is go ahead when you do the file transfer, transfer over the cost information broken down by the different service categories as you currently do, so that the new QRC can track that onto the R8. There's no way to automatically just go ahead and transfer that and the file via campus to the new QRC.
Thanks, Mike.
Next question is, now that the go live date is moved out, will there be any test accessibility available to QRCs to work with the system to get to know their way around campus?
I am going to nominate this one as another parking lot item. I do not have that information. I think it's a good thought though, but I don't have that info.
And I agree with that. I mean, this is all just happening overnight, so we don't know what's going to happen going forward.
Other questions on anything you've seen today? Because we're about to get into claim access, and I want to just make sure that you've seen what you need to see from a perspective of at least initially, from the perspective of cases.
Yeah, there was a question I missed, which was just moved. How does a 15-day grace period prior to submitting work now for the R forms? And the answer is the 15-day grace period continues to work the same way as it's always worked. So what you do is you complete the form, you save it, you send it to the employee for signature, you send it to the insurer for signature. Once you have the forms back, you can upload those forms into the system and then submit everything to DLI, and it's filed. So essentially the same way that you're doing it now.
Right. There has been very minimal, if any, that I can think of off the top of my head, statute updates to timing of submissions based on the switch to campus.
And I'm not seeing any other questions. Going once, going twice. Anybody?
Okay.
I guess we move on.
Yep, we'll have other opportunities for questions, and if we need to revisit, we can. So we're going to get into a little bit of claim access right now. I know that this might not be the most relevant thing for your job, but it is probably something that you might have to do once in a blue moon if you need access to the claim. So I think we should. It's a good way to spend some time here and look at the way that campus would handle claim access. Okay, so if just because you submit the RCR as described before and as I mentioned before, doesn't mean that you get access to the claim automatically. You would still, if you determine that you need access to the claim for whatever reason, we have a request for access form. Another request for access that we have that's kind of tangentially related to the claim is the motion to intervene, which would give you access to a dispute. So we'll be covering both of those in the next few slides. Yeah, one other point to mention here. When you submit your access for a claim, it's going to go to somebody on the DLI side to review it, review any of the supporting documentation that you've added, and they're either going to approve or disapprove, and you'll get an email either way. Okay, kind of what I just mentioned is that you'll submit the form and it'll be granted or denied. The one call out here is that if it is granted, you're given access on a 6-month time frame. Last point is that if at any point during a claim's lifetime, when you have access, you're removed, either DLI, maybe somebody in compliance determines that you're no longer, you should no longer have access and they can manually remove you, you'll get an email either way, letting you know that you've been removed.
And maybe the thing we want to know about that claim access authorization form, generally that's something that QRCs don't need to have completed. You may see that maybe towards the end if there's something like rehab requests that are going out fast and furious regarding the treatment, the rehab plan or getting your bills paid, that type of thing. But otherwise, there generally isn't a reason to have access to a full claim.
Yep, good point. All right. There's various things that getting access to a claim does. One that we wanted to call out was exporting the documents to a zip file. So when you can navigate to a claim, there's many tabs here, and I know they're very small, and you probably can't read them because I can't read them. And we'll see it when we navigate to a claim, but this highlighted one is the documents. So that's all the documents that have been uploaded to a claim. You can also do manual upload of documents the same way that we showed on the rehab case. There's a submit a filing at the top where you can add your own documents. So document management at the claim level is very similar to how it is at the rehab case level. Managing claim access. So this is for, I believe if you went to the rehab registration demo, which was probably a couple weeks ago, there's this concept of group management, and claim access administrator is a role within a group. So if you think of the rehab provider firm, certain staff members can do certain roles, one of which we determine in campus is claim access administrator. And that person can grant or remove access to claims that the rehab provider group is already a party on. So if my firm, Mike Ireland's rehab firm, is on 2 claims, I can administer permissions to those claims to people, to staff on my rehab provider or remove. So this comes in handy if perhaps a QRC on your firm needs to go on leave for an extended period of time, you can help manage those relationships. The motion to intervene. So we understand that you may act as interveners. So there is a new web form for that. It's accessed the same way that the RCR was accessed. So on your dashboard, you have the submit a filing right up top. You open it, and then you can navigate to the motion to intervene. We are going to ask again that you match to a dispute. And in this manner, we're not going to let you progress unless you can actually match. So there's no more claim intake form where we're asking you to provide more details so somebody on the department can go and research it. That doesn't exist. We're considering that if you're submitting this form, you should have enough information to match to it. Just a little bit more on the motion to intervene. It should look pretty standard if you've ever filled out one of these forms, which I'm sure you have. In today's world, we're asking all of the same information, and I'll open it up so that we can see it in a little bit. We have the same affidavit of service step here on the right to notify the parties that you've submitted your motion to intervene. So it should look pretty familiar based on the forms we've already taken a look at today. And now it's demo time. Okay, so again, I'm Sarah McCurdy, logged in as a QRC. And this first option right up here is your access to a case or claim. So I'm going to click on it, and we've got a few options. So the first one, we just talked about, motion to intervene. Next one is submit an authorization. Let's take a look at that one first. So this is completing the web form. So which of the following applies to you? You are the QRC or intern. In section 2, who is a qualified individual authoring your request? And this button here, I've written consent from the employee. So you would hit next, and let's see if it works. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to match to a claim. I don't have an example that works, but it's a very simple web form. Let me go back real quick. What's going to happen here is once you've filled out this information, it's going to go next. If you've clicked this, it's going to ask you for more information, maybe a copy of the written authorization from the employee so that when somebody on DLI's side goes and reviews your request, they can approve it. If they don't see that consent from the employee, then they're going to disapprove it. The motion to intervene, let's navigate there real quick. I do have something that we can do for this. Okay, so we go and we click next for a motion to intervene, and we see that this person has multiple disputes. So you would need to pick the right one. I'm just going to pick the top one, and they all look very similar. You would pick the right one, and then we ask you some organizational information. And then here's the form. It's similar information that you fill out today. So again, if you fill this form out today, and you know what it looks like, we're asking the same information. Okay, so now I'm going to go to an actual claim. So it's going to look pretty similar to a rehab case. You will see here information about the claim. So you get the case file number, claim overview, claim details. So you can see that if we think back to the RCR, when you match, it just pulls over information from this page and inserts it into the form. Key dates related to the claim. I'm not sure how much of this is relevant to to you guys. Probably not a lot of it. Again, typically aren't getting access to the claim, but we can take a look down here. We see the Documents tab. And these are all the documents that are submitted against the claim. And you can download them. I'm not going to do this because it takes some time, but you can do all, or you can select a subset of the documents. Okay, I'm going to pause there and see if we've got any questions.
There was a general question out there if the firm's administrator could be added as a party to the claim so that they can check to see when our forms have been submitted in that. My response to that was while the firm administrator can take a look into campus and see what's done, I don't know if they can actually be listed as a party to the claim, and that's something that would have to be checked on.
Yeah, so the firm itself has to first be identified on the claim. And once your rehab firm is a party on the claim, then users get associated to the firm. I think they're still going to need to follow the same process of requesting access to a claim. We can't automatically allow them to become to access a claim without the employee's authorization.
And I don't see any other questions.
Okay, cool. We might beat the record from yesterday. Not much else. This is just going to go into the details page that I already showed you just now. So yeah, you'll see claim details information. Basically, these are different sections on the form. They've got carets over here, so they're expandable and collapsible. Yep, party information. So this is the same party subsection that you're going to see here is on the rehab case as well. You'll see all the information related to other questions.
I'm not seeing any. Can we go ahead and take a look at that completion of the R8 and completion of the rehab request form?
Yep. Give me a second. I just want to make sure that we get through all these slides, but I'm happy to show the RA for sure. Well, that was the last slide. So yes, I'm happy to show the RA. Okay, let's take a look. All right. Unauthorized again. I promise you that this will not happen in production when you guys log in and use it. This is the burden of a test system. Got lots of bad data in here.
Now they threw out a general question. Will each QRC need to set up their own account, or will the group administrator be able to do it for all of them?
Great question. So the way that it's going to work is that when a group administrator goes and files the registration for the firm, they are asked to list out their staff. So not only QRCs and interns, but also other staff that would be interacting with the system. So those accounts are going to be created. You will still need to register with the system though. You're still going to need, I believe QRCs have a couple different registrations that you need to do. The first one is actually registering with the system and verifying that you are in fact the person who the group admin said you were. And then the second one is your yearly registration with DLI for renewals and all that fun stuff, reinstatements. So those are the two types.
Okay, and there's another question that's kind of related to that. How would administrator at a QRC firm log into a file or files to process forms for multiple QRCs at their firm? Would they need to log in separately for each QRC, or can administrator have overall access in one place to all related files at a specific firm?
Okay, that was a lot. Let's try and break it down. So the first question is, how will somebody be able to submit forms for individuals on in their group? Is that
How would administrator at a QRC firm log into a file or files to process forms for the multiple QRCs at their firm?
sure? So those relationships are made via registration. So for example, if you have, I can't remember the exact role we call them. I don't think it's administrator. I think it's like QRC staff. So they're not like a QRC or QRC intern, but they're noted as like a QRC staff or some other role. But there is a role. Let's just go with QRC staff. When they have a relationship to multiple QRCs in a firm, they're going to be able to see, like it would look just like this. So they would log into my queues. They see the rehab transactions. The QRCs would be different, right? So this is a great example you could see here. Sarah McCurdy and Troy QRC, I would have the ability to work on their behalf in the system and submit forms. You would just need to navigate to each rehab transaction. So say if I wanted to submit an R2 for Sarah, it was, it's time to do that. I would just log into the transaction, navigate to the forms and submit on her behalf. Similar to Troy, same thing. If it's time to submit the R8, we want to close out. Troy has given me the information to fill out the form. I would log in and fill out the R8 and close the case.
And I guess the second part of that question, would they need to log in separately for each QRC, or can administrator have overall access in one place to all related files at a specific firm?
Yep, you're not logging in and out to do work on behalf of people. That would be a terrible experience. Like I mentioned, you're logging into a singular account and you're navigating to this my rehab cases, and you're going to see for every relationship you have that was established at registration, you're going to see all of the transactions you're able to submit on behalf of. And this is actually particularly frustrating because I can't find a case where I can submit. So trying to get there, guys. But if there's other questions, Mike, feel free to read them out. I'm going to give this one or two more shots before I say, all right, perfect. Good time. Okay, so similar to other forms, again, we're not asking you to match to a claim anymore. The case has already been established. So all of that information is pre-populated. All of this stuff should look pretty familiar. What you do today. Closure details. So this is a new section. So I'll pause here and you can see kind of how it looks, what the behavior is. I'm going to kind of fill out some of this stuff. Some of these options, I mean, as I go through this, stop me if anything looks out of the ordinary, but again, you should be pretty familiar. All right. Okay, so this is probably what you're trying to see and looking to see here. Again, should look relatively familiar. So here's where you do all the costs associated with rehab for every service. Questions?
They've had, let's see here. One question was, I guess, will the files be able to be sortable by alphabet or by QRC? And I think that's when they're looking at everything.
Right. So if I understand, you're talking about the rehab cases queue where it shows all of your stuff. Before
Correct.
we answer that, do we have any other questions on the R8? Because that's going to require me to leave this page, and I just want to make sure there's no R8 related questions.
Let's see, is there a way to edit an existing form? Occasionally, a party will request a change to some of the content, incorrect date of entry, new information received after filing, etc. Is there a way to amend a filed form without having to complete a new one? And as far as
That's a great question for you, Mike.
So part of the answer is if it's some of the general information within the R form and you need to edit it, if it's still within the saved category, you can change that before filing it, of course. If there's going to be a change of something like a date of entry, then that's something that they have to do the old-fashioned way, which is has to contact the CRT unit at the department. Generally, what will happen is it's either the insurer or the employee who's saying this is what the actual information is. Maybe something like there's a change of address. And then they would contact the department to have that done. The QRC just can't go in and amend information within a claim. So there's no changes there. Let's see, when doing RCR R2, can the date of the consultation be modified from when completing an RCR or R2 change to reflect any scheduled changes? I guess I don't know what that means. Sorry.
Yeah. Let me take a little stab here about the way that it works, like the rehab case. So I'm gonna leave this page and kind of drive elsewhere. As Mike said, if you've got a form that's saved, oh good, it brought me right back here. Okay. If you've got a form that's saved, of course you can go back, navigate to that form, and update the information. Once you submit, we're creating a document and we're memorializing it by placing it in this documents tab, right? You can't update it. You cannot update that form anymore. It's been submitted. All of these fields that you see on this case, so this is where you're going to come to look and see the rehab details. This stuff is all populated by forms. So the way you update this stuff is by submitting forms, right? Date of injury, that to us is a claim related thing. It's not something that we would, to Mike's point, we would expect a QRC to come in and change the date of injury. That would need to be reflected at the claim level. And then the next time you go to submit a form, it's going to automatically pull that date of injury from the claim and populate it for you. So I hope that helps answer some of the questions.
And I think the other point to it too is just for folks is that once an R form is filed, it's just like it is right now. That form is in the system. That's the way it is. You can't go back in and change a form that's already been filed. Let's see, is there a fee to register in the new system, and when will we register? The answer is no, there's not a fee to register in the new system. and you'll register somewhere after November 2nd when the system goes live. We'll be able to transfer some of the information over into campus, but you'll still have to go in and complete some of the other information. And I don't see any other questions.
Yep. Thanks, Mike. Okay. Well,
Hey, Mike Hill, there's a question on here about whether you're going to take all the calls coming in about campus, or is there going to be a help desk?
The answer is that we're going to be sending all of our questions over to the VRU.
I have an update.
You do.
So this is hot off the press. So an hour ago, Minute flipped the switch. The DLI Work Comp Help Desk is now officially live. So there are 3 full-time staff that are manning a Work Comp Help Desk line. There'll be a ticketing system. So if your calls are about work comp cases in general calling in, they'll be routed either to ADR, as they are now for the help desk, or if they're technical in nature, if they're a problem and the system isn't working the way that it should, that will either go to someone like Mike Ireland, who will solve all the world's problems.
oh, wow.
Confluence. Well, there will be a technical support, and then there will be questions that might get routed to Mike Hill or someone else in CRT about the claim. So the answer is Work Comp has a help desk as of an hour ago.
Right. And so there's not something that's just a set aside help desk to only solve computer problems. I mean, it's going to be more of a customer service line. They're going to take the questions and they're going to route those questions to the appropriate sources to take care of. Next question is, will our cases be in the system? And the answer is yes. What we'll do is CapTech will go ahead and they'll migrate all of the cases as they currently are within our Informix database into Campus. And part of the reason that we had this delay set up last time was to make sure that we were going to get all the information that we have up to date into the system before new information comes out, so there's not a separation between late entries and that type of thing.
Yep, there will be a long weekend for some CapTech folks doing the cutover right before go live to ensure that up to the minute information is definitely transferred over into Campus. Okay, if there are no more questions, then I'm going to close with a thank you. And then I will also say that Yash has provided the link to all the training materials, I believe, in the chat. And so feel free to go and view them and register for more courses. Anything else to add, Yash?
Mike, I don't see that link has been provided in the chat session.
Well, then that's not great.
However, if folks go into the department's regular website, you can certainly go ahead and go into the main page. On the right-hand side, you'll find the workers' comp session, the guy with the red hair and nice smile. Click onto that. As you scroll down, that's going to bring you into a series of 7 boxes. And I want to say that the 7th box is just right below. It says Work Comp Campus on it. If you click onto the Work Comp Campus box, that will then pull you into the system where you can access the live videos and that type of thing.
Awesome, Mike. You're a lifesaver. Okay, then I'm going to stop presenting and end the meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Mike
Yeah.
and Mike, one last question for Mike Hill. So QRCs will continue to file forms for the time being until you send out another notification about when those cutover activities are going to start again for go live in November.
That's absolutely correct. So the August 27th date that we sent out is moot. And we'll send out a new date shortly before it goes live on November 2nd.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
continue to do what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely don't stop. All right. Thank you, folks. Have a good day.
Thanks, Mike.